Okay, so Kal Kadosh, Boker Or, we're going to start Mem Zayin Amud Aleph. This is 47A1, and today we're going to finish the Perek Shlishi, and we're going to continue with Perek Revi'i Bamet Umenim. How do we do Atmana? So we were just finishing off yesterday saying that Rava came, basically he retracted, and he was trying to say as follows. He said like this, he comes and he says, Hanach lener shemen uptila hoil v'nasa basis davar asur, which means really be'emet, right? And that's what he was trying to say over here. The reasoning of Rabbi Shimon that he says that you're not allowed to be metaltel the ner when it's lit, right? So according to Shitat Rabbi Shimon, when the candle is lit, he says the reason why you're not allowed to be metaltel is only because it becomes a basis to the wick. And since it becomes a basis to the wick, which is a basis of the varasur, that's why when it's on, it's prohibited to carry it. But it's not because of the reasoning of that it might turn off, because if it does turn off, it's davar shelo mitkaven. And according to Shitat Rabbi Shimon, davar shelo mitkaven is mutar. There's no problem. Okay? So it starts the Gemara. This is where we started for today. Amar bi Zera, second line. Says it bi Zera in the name of Rabbi Yasi, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, in the name of Rabbi Chanina, in the name of Rabbi Rumanus. Li hiti Rebbe letaltel machta be'efrah. Rebbe permitted me to carry the machta. Here, this machta is it's a utensil which they put levona, frankincense, for a good smell with its efer. Okay, so obviously it's a klishim nachtol isur. Okay, so he says that only you're permitted to move it for tzorch kufo or tzorch mekomo. So now the Gemara is going to come, and once we just heard what Rabbi Zera just said, that Rebbe permitted to carry the machta with the efed, right? So he comes and he says this, Amar le Rabbi Zera le Ravasi, so says Rabbi Zera to Rabbi Yasi, yeah, mi amar Rabbi Yochanan hachi? Does Rabbi Yochanan actually come and he say this? By Vatnan, we learned in a Mishnah later on, Kufim Aleph Amud Bet, Notel Adam beno v'hevem yado. You're allowed to come and take your child in your hand, and he has a stone in his hand. Okay? Now he says here, or kalkala v'hevem betucho, or you're allowed to take a basket, and there's going to be a stone in the basket, which means that even though by now coming and carrying the child, you're carrying the stone, which the stone is muktzeh, or even though you're carrying the basket, you're carrying the stone, and the stone is muktzeh. Okay? The Amar Rav Yochanan Yochanan says Rav Yochanan Yochanan b'melacha, right? Bekalkala melea pirot askinan. We're talking about that it's going to be full of fruits. So since it's full of fruits, that's why it does not become a basis to the stone. Ta'ama, the reasoning why is the bapere, because it's got fruits. Hale bapere. If it doesn't have any fruits, it's a sur. Why? Becomes a basis of the vara sur. So basically the question is, how could Rabbi Yochanan come and say that Rebbe was the one, right, that permitted, right? Because again, I don't know why we're asking more on Rabbi Yochanan more than on Rabbi Yasi or more than Rabbi Chanina or more than Rabbi Rumanus, but they asked it on Rabbi Yochanan. Okay? So the question is that right now we just said that Rabbi Zera says in the name of Rabbi Yasi, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, in the name of Rabbi Chanina, in the name of Rabbi Rumanus, that Rebbe permitted to carry this machta with efed, but it's a klishah, it becomes a basis of the varasur. So it means even though it's a klishah nachtol isur, right, but it becomes a basis of the varasur. If the efed, I cannot use it for anything, so then what are you going to do with it? Now remember, a basis, there's a lot of opinions that say that there's no such thing as basis of the varasur in a klishah nachtol isur. And the reasoning why is because since you're always allowed to carry a klishah nachtol isur, remember, a klishah nachtol isur means a utensil which is usually used for prohibited objects. So since you're allowed to come and you're allowed to use this, right? You're allowed to move it for tzorech gufo, tzorech mekomo, for the necessity. So therefore, why would it become a basis? A basis is only if you have something which is prohibited, like a muktzeh mechama gufo, muktzeh mechamat isur, these types of rock, a stone, money, which has, it's not a utensil, right? So the same thing here. The efed, which is prohibited, or the shalhevet, the wick, you can't do anything with the wick. So therefore, in all these things, it makes a basis. It makes a base. A basis, think of basis like a base of isur. So the question that we ask ourselves is, one second, if it's going to make it into a base, how could he move it? In the case of the fruits, it was only because it was full of fruits. So you have a stone, so it's batel. It's annulled. So it's not a basis of the varasur. But over here, it should become a basis of the varasur. So how could he permit you to come and to start moving it? Doesn't make sense. So what happened was, Zishtomim Kesha Chada. Rabbi Yassi stood quiet and he was just thinking, right? Thinking of the answer. So what happened was, Ramar, and he said, Hacha nami didba kartin. You're right. The machta didn't only have efed, didn't only have the ashes. It also had the gargirim, the little tiny, a gargir is like the little balls. I forgot how you said it in English now, a better word. The little pieces, I don't know how you want to say it, of livona, frankincense, that was left over, that was not burnt, that wasn't burnt. And therefore he says, those are not muksim, but they're still fitting to take it and to smell with it. And therefore you're allowed to be metaltel the machta because of that. So it's the exact same case, like the fruit, the basket full of fruits, that even though there's a stone inside, I'm allowed to carry it, the same thing. Obviously with the child, we didn't ask the question because the child himself is 100% permitted, and therefore the stone in his hand is batil to the child. But when we're talking about stam, a utensil, like a machta, which is like a pan, one of these like shovel pans, right? And then on top of it, you only have the ashes, which is permitted. That's where we ask the question. So now we're going to ask on this. Amar Abaye comes and he says, one second. Kartin be Rebbe mi chashiv. Says what? Kartin in the house of Rebbe were chashuv. Remember that the Rebbe was very, very wealthy. Yudanus, was very, very Rabbeinu HaKadosh, right? He was very, very wealthy. So therefore, do you think that small little tiny particles or small little tiny pieces of levuna, they're going to be bichlal chazi? It says, v'chitem achazulaniim. If you're going to tell me now that they are fitting, and who are they fitting for? They're fitting for the aniyim. He says, one second. Tanya, we learned in a braita. Bigdei aniyim, la'aniyim. Bigdei ashirim, la'ashirim. Poor man's clothing are fitting for poor men. And therefore, you're allowed to come and you're allowed to use it. There's no problem. There's no muks in it. So therefore, poor man's clothing, which is even going to be 3 fingers by 3 fingers, which is 6 by 6 centimeters. Okay? So that's going to be for poor people. That's fine. Bigdei ashirim, to do with a beged of an ashir of a rich person, you need 3 tfachim by 3 tfachim. Remember that each tefach is 8 centimeters. So it's not 6 by 6. It's 24 by 24. So it's mamash, it's triple, you understand? So therefore, it has to be poor people for poor people, rich people for rich people. However, though, danim lashirim, no. Not because the poor person is going to use this, are you going to now say that it's not muktzeh for a rich person? For a rich person, he would never even dream about using such a thing. So since he wouldn't dream about using such a thing, it doesn't help, okay? So now says the Gemara, right? So now according to this, the question that he's asking is, how could you come and try to answer to me that in this dustpan, in this like pail or like a shovel, that it also had little tiny particles of the frankincense that weren't burnt, and therefore since it's still fitting, so therefore it's not mukseh. Says, one second, Rebbe was rich, you think it's important for him? And the entire thing goes to the garbage. So he says, Elamar Abaye, but rather you're right. Abaye comes and he says, Mida dehava graf sherei. It's like a graf sherei. What does that mean? Just like when a person has an earthenware utensil in order to get rid of excrement, and the rabbis permitted you to throw it out in the garbage because it's disgusting. Remember in the olden days, they didn't have washrooms in the houses. The washrooms were very far away. Many times they were in the fields. Right? That's why we said, if you remember in Berachot, many times, blessed is the person, what's the biggest beracha? That he's got a bathroom beside his house, right? And the other opinion said he had a bet knesset beside his house. Why? Because at the end of the day, it was a blessing to have it right beside your house. So what did they used to do? Many times they used to have what was called an avit shel meraglai or graf shel rei. So there are 2 different utensils. One of them was used for urine, and one of them was used for excrement. And they used to make their necessities there, but then they weren't going to leave it in the house. It's disgusting. So what would they used to do? They used to take it out. So that was a special permission given by the rabbis to take out a graf sharei and a ravitcha meraglaim. It was a special permission. So says the Gemara, this ashes was permitted to remove from the house or permitted to move because of a graf sharei. Nowadays, by the way, we apply the graf sharei to many different applications. One of them is, for example, pits, like olive pits or bones or all these things which are muktzeh. So many times we apply the graf sharei to that as well, which means that it's considered like a it's disgusting. Well, you're going to leave the olive pits on the table by itself. You understand? So therefore, you just come, you take the entire thing, and you just throw it out. So Amar Rava comes and he asks against Abaye, and he says, I've got two questions against this. Chada, number one, graf sharei mais, ahilo mais. He says a graf sharei is disgusting. This is not disgusting. This shovel that also has ashes and some gargirim, some different how do you call the sand? Each gargir shel chol, how do you call that? No, nobody's fluent in English enough. Each.
I'm not seeing it.
Grain. Sometimes they say it's like a grain.
Grain, yes.
Yeah, so each grain.
Granulas, grain.
Yeah, probably grain. No, that's what I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, fine. So that's perfect then. So each grain, right?
Yeah, in French, grain de sable.
Yeah, that's what they say also. So
Grain de sable. Grain. In English, probably grain.
Yeah, Baruch Hashem.
Yeah.
You can't see it. That's so funny. Okay. But basically, gargir is a grain. So Baruch Hashem. We know English and French. Okay, very good. And Spanish. So basically what happened is that it's every single grain of frankincense, right? So he says over here, he says the grains of frankincense are not disgusting. The grains or not the grains, but the excrement is disgusting. So how could you tell me that since you're allowed to take out excrement in this utensil right from your house because it's disgusting on Shabbat, you're going to compare that to the grains of frankincense or to the ashes or whatever it is? What does that mean? Right? You can't compare the two. Number two, and furthermore, graf sharei migale. A graf sharei is revealed. A graf sharei was like a potty. You understand? You think the potty, what they make for little children, came from nowadays? It was from the olden days. It was for adults. And why? Because again, they used to make their necessities in the houses, right? And then they used to take it out into the fields, right? Imagine in the middle of the night, you wake up, 3 o'clock in the morning. You're not going to go get dressed, go in the middle of dark to the field. So what would you do? You'll do your necessities in like a type of a receptacle, whatever you want to call it exactly. And then the next morning you would take it out. You're not going to leave it in your house. Well, you're going to leave all the garbage. It's disgusting. So, but there it's revealed. Here it's covered. This type of a pan, right, that you had the ashes and the frankincense, they would have it covered. So you can't compare it. So shte tshuva b'davar. So Rava argues on Abaye for two reasons. So Elam Rava, but rather Rava comes and he says, Ki avinan berav Nachman, when we were in the academy of Rav Nachman, have a metaltalinan kenuna. We used to be metaltel, right? On Shabbat, the utensil that used to put the fire in it, agav kitma, because of the efer, because the efer wasn't muktzeh, right? But they used to, why is efer not muktzeh? Why is ashes not muktzeh? Because you would use ashes to cover saliva or to cover excrement. And even though here you would have small little tiny pieces of wood, you would still move it, which means that it comes out that efer in itself is not muktzeh, because efer they would use to cover saliva or to cover excrement and other things. So because of that, that's why you're allowed to move it. So therefore, don't tell me it's because it's a graf sharei or it's called little grains of frankincense, even without any grains of frankincense. And even if it doesn't have a graf sharei, a din of graf sharei, it's still permitted because there's no isur, because it's not mukse. Okay? So meitvei, so they're going to now ask the following question. Shavin, Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon, right? They're both equal. They both agree. That if it has leftover wicks inside of this candle, that it's going to be prohibited to move it. Why? Because since the shivre petila is mukse, so it becomes a basis to the shivre petila. Right? That means as long as it still has the wicks inside, it becomes mukse because it's a basis. So Abaye says, no, the Galil Ashanu. We're talking about in the Galil. And in the Galil, right, it's not common, right, pishtan, it's not common linen. So therefore, that's how they used to make, right, the ptilim, the wicks, were all usually made out of linen. So therefore, since it was very not common and was very, very expensive, it comes out that it wasn't, the shemen was not more the chashuv, right, than the shivrei ptilot. And therefore, the shemen does not permit the carrying of the candle, which means usually the wick is batel. What's the wick? Nothing. So therefore, what's the most important? The most important is going to be the candlesticks or the actual oil. The oil was more important than anything else. But there, since the wicks were so expensive, you would reuse the wicks, and the wicks were so expensive, so therefore it wasn't batel to the shemen. And therefore, be'emet, it was muktzeh, and therefore that's why we said it becomes basis devar asur. Okay? Next, Levi bar Shmuel ashkechinu leRabbi Abba u'Ravuna bar Chia. Levi bar Shmuel once found, right, Rabbi Abba and Ravuna bar Chia. They were at the entrance of the academy of Ravuna. Okay? So, Amar lehu, he told them, Ma'u lachzir mita shel trasim b'Shabbat. Are you allowed to put up a bed of tzorfei nechoshet, of copper yielders, I forgot what the word is in English, a tzoref, which is basically somebody that they put the copper together, they form it together. Here it says it's a jeweler. How could it be a jeweler?
Because you have to burn all the element and put them together.
Right. Okay. So that's why here he calls it in English as a jeweler, but okay, fine. So I'll just show you the picture. This over here is the mitash tarsim, this type of a bed. So is it permitted to set up this type of a bed on Shabbat or not? Everyone sees it?
Yeah, it's a cut.
Okay, very good. Yeah, it's like a cloth. So he says, so Amlule, they told him, Shapir Dami, it's mutar. So Atalekemed Rav Yehuda, he came in front of Rav Yehuda, Amar, Haravu Shmuel Damir Tavayu, Machsin Mitzim Shebachyav Chatat. He says, how's it mutar if Rav and Shmuel both said that it's going to be Chayav Chatat, which means if a person did this on Shabbat, Pashut is Chayav Chatat. So how could it be? How could you tell me so easily that it's going to be a mutar? It's Chayav Chatat. So says the Gemara, here he says that the prohibition is because makebe patish, because you're finishing an object. So the fact that you're putting it all together, even if it was previously built and unbuilt, it's makebe patish. You're finishing the object. So it comes out that it's a machloket amuraim. Whether you're
It's a bonnet.
Which one?
It's a bonnet. It's like a building. Makebe patish.
Well, makebe patish is another. It's a gemar melacha usually. So the makebe patish is like when you're finishing the job. So he says that even though he says you can't be chayev oto mishum boneh because it's not bekelim. En binyan ustira bekelim, right? Only bekarka or bebinyan mechubar lekarka. That's what the Rashi says later on. So therefore, you can't tell him it's because of boneh. It has to be makebe patish, which is like a finishing of a melacha. For example, when you write a letter on Shabbat, for you to be chayav, you need two letters. However, though, if I wrote one letter and I finished the Sefer Torah, I'm going to be chayav. Why? Makebe patish, I finished it off. I finished off the entire Sefer Torah with one letter. So you're right, I'm not going to be chayav mishum kotev. I'm chayav mishum makebe patish. It's a different melacha, Any melacha which on Shabbat I finish off a product, that's called malkeh bepatish, it's a sur. Okay? So says the Gemara, Meitvei, so they ask the following question, Hamachzir keneh menorah b'Shabbat, if you're going to return the keneh menorah on Shabbat, so imagine I come and I put all the pieces together of the menorah, a candelabra, candlesticks, on Shabbat, you're going to be chayav chatat. Keneh sayadin, it's going to be keneh sayadin. So here, this is the keneh sayadin. Sorry, over there. This, right there. That's keneh sayadin. Okay? So that of the sayad, right, which is also made out of different pieces, and they come and they put it together. So the fact that you're going to come and you're going to put it together, lo yachzir, don't put it back together. But if you did, you're going to be batul of rasur. Right? Now, why? He says that since it's always necessary to do so, you're not chayav mishum melechem patish. A very interesting heter. There in the keneh sayadin, every single time you have to take it apart and put it back together. Every time. The part of the menorah, you could leave it that way as long as you want. So for by the menorah, if you put it back together, you're going to be chayav chatat. By the keneh sayadin, right, which is this like type of a hammer of the ones that they do the plastering and everything, that is going to be patur of asur. V'ismai omer keren agula, which is basically
How can it be patur and aval asur?
why patur of asur just means it's isur d'Rabbanan.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. Usually, whenever we say patur asur, it means the Rabbanan. Right? That's patur michatat, but it's still asur for us lechatchila to do so. This is the other one. This is the keren agula, which is like the horn, the shofar, which is a gol. Okay, so it says over here, and the other one was pshuta, which is just basically straight. So this is the agula and the straight one. So it says here, if you're going to keren agula, which is the kli zemer, which is made out of these flutes coming out. So if you're going to put the flutes in the holes, you're going to be chayav. Okay, why? Because you have to stick it in very, very hard. If it's keren pshuta, right, which basically you just put it in and there's a lot of space. So then in those cases, because basically the keren pshuta, since you're holding it upwards, so the top flutes, they come in and they don't have to be very, very strongly put inside, very tight, right? Because it's not going to fall. But that gula, since it's on a slant, so it would fall. So you have to stick it in very, very hard. So the keren agula, if you're going to put the flutes in, you're going to be chayav. The keren pshuta that is straight, you're going to be again the same thing, patur v'asur. Okay? So it comes out, right, that the mitav tarsi.
Basically, because the agula is going to be a finished product.
Yeah, meaning that since you have to put it very, very tight, it's like a finished product. The other one is not. It's very simple to put it in.
Loose.
Asur midrabanan, right? Asur midrabanan, but it's patur. Now, the question though that why we're bringing all this down is because this bed for these type of people that are sleeping in that type of a cot, right? That in itself should be asur because it's like a keneh menorah. So therefore, if you put it back, it should be like Rav and Shmuel that you're going to be chayav chatat, not like shitat Rav Huna that he said that it's going to be permitted. So says the Gemara, inu de'amar ki aitanu. No, this Tana Rav Huna, he holds like this. He holds the Tana as we learned in a Braita, malbenot amita. Malbenot amita, or the I don't know how you want to call it. It's the base of the bed. Look, this is the bed. You have Aleph and Bet. You see over here, Aleph and Bet? So Aleph is on the bottom part. That's called Malbenot Amita. It's like, and Bet is like the legs of the bed. So the legs of the bed goes into like a type of a socket. It goes into like a type of a thing on the bottom. That's called Malbenot. So it says over here like this. Malbenot Amita, which are the Raglaim Aktanim, that they have a Bet Kibul. They have a receptacle to receive the legs. Okay, until nowadays they have these things as well. They come and they put them in, right? The legs, they put them inside of another thing. Okay? So it says over here like this, Malbenot Amita, right, which are Raglaim Ktanot, that they have a Bet Kibul. and they put the raglei mita inside of it in order to protect the bed. Why? Because that part on the bottom usually was made out of metal or other things. And the other parts was made out of wood. So if you had it directly on the floor, it would get ruined. You're doing sponja, you're doing, you're mopping the floor, you're throwing water and all these other things on the floor. It would get ruined. So what did you do? You used to put those legs, the bed feet, right, the bed posts into another socket, and that would protect it. So it says over here, the karota mita, or the actual bed posts, the actual feet of the bed over there, ulvachim shel sekibas, or luchot etz, which is made out of etz hakeshet. What does that mean? Blistera. It says here, for the bow and arrow. Okay, this is the bow and arrow. Sorry, this picture, right here. Right? So it's over here like this. So it says the levachim shel, which is the luchot etz, which is part of the etz keshet, which is part of the bow. Lo yachzir, you're not allowed to put it back together. Now, if you did put it back together, right? What happens is that if you did put it back together, you're going to be patur from chatat. Okay? So it says over here as follows. It says over here, aval asur, but it's asur midrabanan. Right? So it comes out that in such a case, in these three cases, it's only patur of asur. So because of that, it's going to be the same halacha by us. Why exactly? It's only a gezerah because maybe you're going to do it, you're going to stick it in very, very hard. Velo yitka, now you shouldn't put it very, very strong inside of it. But if you did do it, you're going to be chayav chatat. However, the Rashbag Omer, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says, imayar rafui, it's going to be mutar to put it on Shabbat. So basically the shita of Rav Huna is going like the shita of Rashbag. Okay, and therefore, since shitat Rashbag was that it's going to be permitted, so 2 years can be permitted. Why? Because as long as it's rafui, and it's not very, very tight, it's going to be permitted. Okay? Fine. By the way, you should know the same halacha applies nowadays. Sometimes it happens that somebody, they've asked in the past, let's say they have a broom, and sometimes the bottom part of the broom comes out. So are you allowed to put it back on Shabbat and screw it back on? So the answer is that if it never comes out, you're not allowed to do that on Shabbat. Because maybe it's a kizirah, you're going to do it tightly. But if many times it falls out, so then you could put it back on Shabbat and there's no problem. The reason why is because it's the same thing. Because it's meant to come in and out. So for sure it's not a doraita, it's not a makeh b'patish. Okay? The house of Rav Chama, they had a mita shel prakim, which is again the bed, which was made out of prakim, right? Out of different parts, and they used to assemble it. So they used to put it back on Yom Tov. So one of the rabbis told Rava, "My datech, what do you think? Right? Is it permitted or not? Why? Binyan min hatzadu. Do I say that it's like a shinui? So it's not a binyan gamur, right?" So he says, "1 second. Neiti isur doraita leka for sure. Okay, fine. 1 second. It's not an isur doraita, but isur drabanan. But there should be still a isur drabanan." So Amalei, he says, "No. Anan kerashbag sfirali. I hold like rashbag." That he says as long as not putting it very, very tightly inside, it's always going to be mutar to put it on Shabbat. And means according to Shitat Rashbag, only if I put something tight with a tight fit, then it's going to be a sur. But if it's not going to be a tight fit and it's always going to be loose, no problem. Okay? Fine. So now we're going to do the Mishnah. Mishnah says on Mem Zayin Mubet, Notrin kli tachat enel lekabel nitzotzot, so you're allowed to put a utensil underneath the candle to accept nitzotzot. You remember the sparks that are coming out. But don't put water inside of the utensil. Because you're being mechabeh the nitzotzot, which means the sparks which are coming out and they go into this utensil, it's going to turn off immediately because of the water that you put there. So you're not allowed to do that. You're allowed to put the utensil, you can't put the water in the utensil. Okay? So ask the Gemara, we already spoke about this question. You're being vatel the kli mechano, which means beforehand you were able to use the kli. Now that you put the utensil there, and the sparks are coming inside of it, so now you can't use the utensil. So you're being vatel the kli, which is either going to be soter, boneh, whatever it is. But basically, you're destroying the utensil. You can't use it now. You're making a muktzeh. So answers the Gemara, Amar Ravuna b'Yeshua, nitzotzot mamash. Nitzotzot are not tangible. So for since the nitzotzot do not have any mamashut, so therefore you could still use it even after the nitzotzot fell inside of it. It's a spark. A spark comes into utensil, disappears. Now you could use the utensil for whatever you want. Okay? Next, it says, right? You're not allowed to put water inside of it because you're mechabeh, you're turning off, you're extinguishing the sparks. So it says the Gemara, maybe our Mishnah is like Rabbi Yosef. Amar gram lekibuy asur. Gram kibuy is asur. So says the Gemara, no, do you really think so? Emor do Amar Rabbi Yosef b'Shabbat. That's only on Shabbat that you're not allowed to do gram kibuy. Be'erev Shabbat mi amar. On Erev Shabbat, did he ever say such a thing? Now, if you're going to tell me achinami, right, and we're talking about on Shabbat, but Tanya, we learned in a Braita, נותנים כלי תחת לקבלתו בשבת, ואין צריך לומר בערב שבת, ולא ייתן לתוכו מים מפני שהוא מכבה מערב שבת, ואין צריך לומר בשבת. So for since you're not allowed to put a utensil with water, even on Erev Shabbat, so therefore it comes out that you can't say the reason is because of Gram Kibui, like Rabbi Yosef, right? But here it's Erev Shabbat, and there's no Yisur on Erev Shabbat to do Gram Kibui. Gram Kibui is to cause an extinguishing. So for example, Gram Kibui is I'm going to put a timer that the lights are going to go off on Friday night. That's called Gram Kibui. I'm allowed to do that if I did it on Erev Shabbat. So what's the Yisur? So says the Gemara, Elama Ravashi, but rather Ravashi comes and he says, Afilu Teim Rabbanan, even if you're going to tell me that it's Rabbanan, but they say that it's going to, they argue on Rabbi Yosef, and they permit Gram Kibui, Shanehacha, here it's different, Mekarev Kibui. It's not grama. You're not causing it. You're making it closer. You're cutting out the span. You're making it closer. That's what's a sur. So therefore, it's not just stam like a regular case of gram kibui. It's mamash you're making it closer, so that's why it's going to be a sur. Okay? Hadran alach kira. We finished perek kira. The truth is, you should know. Just on the side note, this question was just asked to me last week because of Yom Tov, and it comes out on Shabbat. And what happened was that they had the plata on for Pesach, and then they didn't need the plata anymore for Shabbat. So they didn't want it on anymore. So were they able to cause kibui, to cause that it was going to be off? So basically when the timer was off, they didn't have an electrical timer, obviously. We're talking about those timers with the little pegs, like the olden days, right? So they used little tiny, so were they able to come and do something with it in order to cause that it wouldn't turn on the timer or not? So that just shows you how applicable it is that even nowadays, this concept of gram kibui or not. There's huge machlokot in the Achronim. First of all, is it actually muktzeh or not muktzeh? Second of all, what are you allowed to do? Am I only allowed to extend I'm only allowed to extend whatever the situation is right now, which means if it's already on, I can make it stay on longer, or if it's already off, I can make it stay off longer, or can I basically take it off completely? The question is, if it's in the plug, if it's in the socket, the wall socket, so how do you do that? So again, there's machlokot, muktzeh, non-muktzeh, Rosh Hashanah. At the end, in a case of mamash need, like they have in Gibraltar, where they don't have timers, they don't have all these things, they're a little bit more, old-fashioned, right, in the whole country. So then it's, obviously you have to try to be a little bit more lenient, especially when it's dangerous, right? The plata chashmali to be on the entire time. You have kids around, this, that. It's not that simple. Fine. Next chapter is hatmana. So if you remember, just to give you an overview, hatmana is to insulate. In the olden days, what they used to do is they used to have the food on the fire from Erev Shabbat, and they used to take it off the fire. They used to insulate it. By insulating it with many different types of utensils or materials, so then what happened is that you were able to have it on Friday night or Shabbat morning, whenever you want, and it was actually going to be okay. So meaning it was going to be still warm. So it says the Mishnah, Bameh tomenin u'bameh tomenin, right? Just like the previous Perek chapter started Bameh malikin, right? It was 2 chapters ago, right? Bameh malikin, we're going to say the same thing. Bameh tomenin, with what can you do hatmana, and with what can you not do hatmana? Okay? So says the Mishnah, En tomrin, you can't do atmana lo begefet, not with the refuse of olives or of sesame seeds. Lo bezevel, not with fertilizer of animals, which is the excrement of animals. Lo bemelach, not with salt. Lo beseed, not with lime. Lo bechol, not with sand. Ben lachim and machine. In all of these things, whether it's going to be lach or yavesh, moist or dry, none of these things. Okay? Then it says, why? Because they all add heat. And anything which is adding heat on Shabbat is going to be prohibited to do with hatmana. We'll see why. Velo betevim, velo bezagin. Not with wheat, with grains, with straws, right? With straw. Or velo bezagin, or not with the zagin, which is basically when you finish squeezing the olives to make wine, you have leftover the zagin, right? Which is basically the refuse of the grapes. Velo bemochin, not with pieces of cotton, okay, like cotton wool. Velo ba'asavin, not with grass. These things, there's only when it's going to be moist. Because they add on when it's going to be moist. But if they're going to be yavesh, they're going to be dry, then you could do atmana with these things because they don't add heat. They only maintain the heat. Okay? So says the Gemara, so they ask the following question, Gefet shel zeitin tanan. When we're talking about Gefet, is it only Gefet shel zeitin, which is the refuse of olives? Aval the shum shemim bat sesame is permitted, shapi dami, is going to be permitted. Or Dimar, maybe the shum shemim tanan, maybe it was only of, because we only said Gefet, we didn't say of what? So maybe the Gefet was only of the sesame seeds, and kol sheken, the olives, you can't do it, because olives is much worse than the sesame seeds. So Tashema, we're going to try to bring the proof. Tamar bizera mishum chad dever Rabbi Yanai, says the bizera in the name of one of them, the academy of Rabbi Yanai, the yeshiva of Rabbi Yanai, kupa, which is a basket. Shetamanba kedira, that you put a kedira inside of the basket, you put a pot inside of this basket, in something which does not add heat. Asula nicha al gefet shel zeitim. You're not allowed to put this basket inside on Erev Shabbat of another on top of refuse of olives, because it does add in heaven, which means even though the hatmana itself was in something which does not add heat, because the basket does not add heat, and you're allowed to do hatmana there, but the fact that you're placing the basket on top of the psolat shel zeitim, which does add on heat, which is the refuse of the olives, so then it's considered matmin levar mosif heaven, and therefore it comes out that it's going to be asur. And here we said gefet shel zeitim. We didn't say shum shamin. Shemamina shel zeitim tanan. So it comes to teach you that we're talking about shel zeitim. This exact question is brought down to do with the hot plate. Why? You're not allowed to do a tmana with something which adds heat. The hot plate adds heat, but the hot plate is not a tmana because it's only on the bottom. It doesn't surround the utensil. It's only on the bottom. But am I allowed to come and put a towel, or nowadays even have a special cover? Can I put the special cover on top of the hot plate, on top of the pots and the bread and everything? Am I allowed to do that? Because even though the cover or the towel does not add heat, it only maintains the heat, the hot plate adds the heat. So there's a whole machloket, there's a whole thing, because there, it's a little bit different, because here in this case, everything was on the bottom. You did a tmana with a basket, and then you did another tmana with the refuse of the olives. Here, the hot plate is on the bottom, and the towel is on the top, and it connects. So there's a whole question. That's what we're asking about.
But you maintain the heat when you do that with the towel.
100%, but since it's connected, the towel, meaning since the towel is on the top and the pot is on the bottom, and it connects one to another, maybe it's considered that you are doing it with something which is mosif heaven. Just like the case over here. You put this basket inside of a box. The box itself you were allowed inside of a basket. So you put the pot in the basket. The basket itself only maintains heat, so you're allowed to do that. But you took this basket with a pot inside of it, and then you put on refuse of oil of olives, which is prohibited because that adds heat. So therefore, is that permitted or prohibited? So here we just said it's prohibited. So the question is the hot plate the same halacha, that it connects, and does it make it prohibited or not? Okay? So says the Gemara, we're going to try to now disprove.
But maintain a heat on that towel is not going to make the product be cooked.
Hatmana has nothing to do with making it cooked. Hatmana was just because it adds heat, we're going to suspect that maybe you're going to come and you're going to stoke the coals, or you're going to put it on the fire. Not because of cooking. Not because of the cooking.
Okay.
Okay? Very good. So he says now like this. So we want to disprove this part and say that our Mishnah is talking about all types of gefet, all types of refuse, whether of olives or sesame seeds. Says the Gemara, we're going to tell you that shum shemin is also asur. That with sesame is also going to be asur. But to do with hevla, to do with adding heat, zeitim maske hevla. Only refuse of olives adds heat. The shum shemin lo maske hevla. But if shum shemin of the sesame does not add heat.
Because it doesn't have skin.
Yeah, but it doesn't have skin, so it doesn't actually add the heat. That's it. Okay, so Bezrat Hashem, then we continue Bezrat Hashem tomorrow.